Awesome. Well, excited to have this conversation. When Chris had originally reached out to me about it, I was like, all right, let me do some digging and diving into the brothers here and learn more about what you guys are doing in this space. So excited to have a larger conversation with everybody, and just really get allow everybody to know more about you guys, what you're doing in this space, and more about your agency. So that's kind of how the conversation is going to roll today, if you guys are cool with that.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. Cool. All right. So for people that don't know about Unicom Media Group, would love for you guys, I know you started back in 2009, would love for you guys to kind of give us, an overview of how you guys started, an intro just about your agency and really the professional journey that led you guys up to starting the company together.
Yeah, Let's start with that. And y'all can hear me well, right?
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome.
You're
good. It's been, thank you for having us. And is the session going to be in Spanish, right? I'm going to hablar español, inglés, no? I'm just kidding. Like, I want people
don't let
to
the
understand,
last name
right?
fool you.
No, it was I'm telling you the why the agency, why we started agency, it was just kind of the desire to help brands reach the Hispanic market. I think, my brother and I, were very new in that in this space. I was a marketing graduate, did an MBA, and my brother was doing his finance and CPA. He was definitely working toward those things, and we just started our own, house bedrooms, and just decided, you know what, here where we are in the Southeast area in South Carolina, brands need to reach the Hispanic market, and I saw a true passion for elevating right, our Hispanic community, and also elevating brands. And so, 2009, there was a recession, financial recession. And I just saw an opportunity and said, I told my brothers, like, there's this thing right here. It's a Hispanic, market. And there's this idea, and a friend of mine shared with me what I could do as an agency. And I think we got something. And so it was amazing just to start, and, the rest is history. And so very excited to say that having my brother as a business partner has been growing. It's been awesome. And it's also, you can tell, he can tell you that it's been one of those growing pains, getting to know each other in a different way, but it's been, I wouldn't change it for a world.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I'll add just a little bit, right? I was 18, right? I was coming out of high school, starting college. My brother had just graduated. It seemed like a tremendous idea. I think my second question was, okay, what the heck is an agency, right? Like, what are we supposed to do here? And I think the most, I think, rewarding part about it internally as an organization has just been to be able to build this business with really, really smart people around us, starting with my brother and our team, and people who have spent a long time in the agency space, who care about what we're doing, who want to grow the Hispanic community and our impact in it, and our ability, I think, to grow as an agency is a direct result of people like our team and advisors and mentors who have invested in us throughout the years. So I love this space. Everything about advertising is, I could talk about it all day long. It's been a great journey for the last 12 years or whatever.
Awesome. Just out of curiosity too, I was obviously checking out the site. Are there like specific verticals or different companies that your agency is focusing on? I know you guys had like a wide variety of different brands and different companies you're working on. Just kind of curious if there are specific, brands out there that you guys are working with, or specific verticals.
There's not really a specific vertical we're working with. Our niche is the Hispanic market, and we've seen a good amount of verticals like legal, health, apps, tech, pest control, and name it. And we love that right now. We love the idea that we can take what we learn in the pest industry and share it with in the industry of trucking, or share it in the industry of health, like at least learn a few things. So we're not really focusing on a certain vertical per se. We have an extensive experience in a lot of different areas that has given us a lot of experience to and help us to see things differently.
Awesome, cool. That gives us a better understanding really of UMG, what you guys are doing, and just like the background of how you guys, started. Would love if you guys can help the audience that's tuning in today just have a really like a better understanding. You guys are the experts in the Hispanic market. If you guys can just really bring us up to speed on what really makes the Hispanic market in the US so unique. And then also, why is it so important just for brands specifically to be targeting this community in the US?
Yeah, I can start with that one. I think of two things. One is cultural resiliency, right? So the ability for the Hispanic market across the cultural spectrum, which we don't have time to get into today, but these acculturation spectrums. We essentially you have a very resilient group that, whether it's language, religion, art, music, customs, they're very interested in keeping that and observing that, and beyond just their time transitioning to the United States, you find generational, multi-generational families that have and keep a lot of those customs. So there's a reason why advertising specifically to that market in a culturally appropriate way yields the results that it does, and that's a big reason why. A subset of that I would mention that I think a lot of brands would run into, particularly in first and second generation Hispanic communities, has a lot to do with the fact that there's a unique consumer in that they might be physically here in the US, but a lot of their emotional familial ties are still back home, wherever home is. And you know, in the advertising journey and in the consumer journey, you're trying to convince and get somebody to buy your product, to use your brand. And there's a layer there that sometimes we miss, that hey, they're here, but they're here for a reason, and there's a mission. And some folks come here to stay and live a better life. A lot of folks, we were just doing some research recently, have a stated goal to support family back home and to do things that are related to emotional ties to their home country. So there's some unique factors in each of those.
Yeah, and in answer to your question, well, like, why is it important? I mean, I think the census automatically tells you like why it's been important. Going from like 16% or so of the population being Hispanic to almost 18, 19%. I mean, it's a wow, like, number, right? But what's interesting also, what I tell brands is that where the slowest growth was in like places like Texas and California. I was like, it's like there's still a big population, but the fastest growing, Hispanic populations are happening in places like Tennessee, North Dakota, South Dakota, Georgia, very unique places like that you think, well, other Latinos, live in New York, Miami, Texas. But, those states are getting tremendous growth, even in South Carolina, where we are, the Southeast. We're seeing that fastest growth happening. I think that's what's important, because a blink of an eye, a brand all of a sudden that is headquarters in the Midwest, all of a sudden it's like, wow, like there's a Hispanic audience and we miss it. So I encourage like people, that's important to show like where the fastest growth population happen, and look in your area and see if there was fast growth. Take a look at that and reconsider some of your marketing outreach and see if you can reach some Hispanic community in that area.
I think that's really interesting, because to your point, like some of those areas that you had mentioned right now, they don't come first to mind, like right off the top of your head of areas that are really growing in that, within that community. And so, you think of, like you said, the Los Angeles, Texas, those kind of areas that are first to mind when I think of this Hispanic community, but growing in these other areas. It's really interesting that you guys are able to. Sorry. Do I have a delay on my end?
A little bit. Sorry. You're good.
Oh, okay.
No, you're good now.
Apologies. No, but that's an interesting point to bring up, and something to definitely consider when, thinking of that for the brands that you guys are working with.
Yeah, so. Yeah. It is something to think about. I get it all the time. People, brands say, well, we want to be in Houston, New York. And I said, those are great markets and can be expensive. You want to get to, have you considered other medium-sized markets, other markets too that are well in there? And for some brands, it makes sense. For other ones, don't. But, it's still an area to consider, like what's the fastest growing population, what's happening. And the 2020 census really shows you that. And there's more to come.
Awesome. Very cool. Perfect. So I think, as we're seeing diversity is really playing a key role in a lot of marketing initiatives for a lot of brands, especially within like the last 2 years, we've seen this. I personally, a lot of the brands that I work with, it's been, a key and a huge point for the brands to be like, hey, let's make sure that we're also building out, some, initiative in this area as well. So it's top of mind for a lot of brands. It's a huge, thing that we want to make sure that we're focusing on when brands definitely want to include it. I think for me, and then, you guys do this so well too, how are you able to guide a brand to really deliver this message to this audience, this population in a really authentic way and come off as being like very authentic to this audience?
There's something, I think Ramon and I have the exact same answer on this stuff, because brothers don't always have the same opinions on stuff, but this is one of those things where it's we basically see it the same way. There's a certain layer. So you hit it. Authentic is right in one of those first sentences that we say when we start having this conversation. But where we like to start is having a conversation around organizational values and finding what it is that you find important and what you think is important as a brand, and then lining that up with those values that the Hispanic market finds important. And in that way, organically at a DNA level, you start to come across as authentic. And if there's one thing you don't want to do with this market, you don't want to be the how do you do fellow kids meme with this market. Like they can spot non-authentic marketing and efforts a mile away, right? So you really have to find that deep level of alignment, and that's where we have found historically with our clients the most success.
Yeah, I and that's why when Gustavo and I were talking about that question, it's like, that's where I start with clients. I had a client, a potential client that was just, what you say you're affordable. Well, affordability may mean different things for the Hispanic community and may mean things for your current customer. So you really got to learn how to come across, that message and still keep true to yourself. Because brands sometimes just say, do I have to change my brand and attribute, change colors? Like, no, you don't have to. You just looking for those brand attributes and see which ones really resonate with the community that you're trying, the Hispanic community segment that you're trying to connect. And I'd be honest with you, it makes things a little bit easier for the marketer because they don't have to change things, and it's like, wow, there's common theme here with the Hispanic segment, so it's easier for them to reach out and activate against that.
Awesome. I think that's super helpful and key to that. Like obviously the authenticity, being genuine and really like resonating with this audience, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of staying on this topic, and more brands wanting to get involved and market to this audience. Do you guys have like specific advice that you're giving to either clients that you currently have right now or new brands that are reaching out to you that are like, hey, we have dollars we need to spend in this area, but what's the advice that you're giving to people that come to you with this ask and want to allocate this marketing spend?
Yeah, I actually, what's interesting is like the niche that we found within our own niche has been helping brands that have never reached the Hispanic market or have for a little. We've helped so many since we started, so it's been really cool to see that. It's like, we're taking a brand new into the market and just seeing them realize it's like, wow, this is awesome. And the biggest advice I share, and it's interesting, I see this all the time, And I don't know why, but maybe it just doesn't come across that they can do this. Brands can really right now like identify within their own CMS system, their first party data, say how many of them are in the Hispanic segment. Like, and I always tell brands like, start internally, start looking at your first party data and look like how many are Hispanic, already users or consumers, even if it's a small segment, but it starts. I mean, we helped a client, a regional client that had like 30, 40 locations. And when we analyzed their data, it's like if about 40% of the customers were Hispanic, and he didn't even know. He thought it was reaching a new segment. I was like, you got 40% that are Latino, and like, and here's who they are, and let's find more of them. Let's identify more of this, and let's really help you build that marketing spend. I just had a call today with another e-commerce platform. I said, you realize that the millions of traffic that you're getting, you can identify that traffic and say who's Hispanic or not. And no, like it baffles me sometimes, but that's why we're here, right? The experts are here, like, sure, like help you identify that. And so that's the biggest advice I tell people, I tell clients is look internally, your consumer, or even your own employees. If you're B2B, look at your own Hispanic employees and talk to them. Figure out what makes you the brand that you are today,
Yeah, the one thing I would add, I like to look for organizational buy-in, right? So it's one thing to call it a project or an experiment and let's see how it goes. Like it's another, and where you really set yourself up for success is when you've gotten buy-in all the way up to the top about what we're doing, approaching, and how we're going about this program with the Hispanic market, all the way down to frontline. What if you're brick and mortar retail, to your frontline employees down at the store level who are aligned with what we're doing and how we're attracting this loyal consumer and earning their business and their loyalty. So it's organizational buy-in to me is a pretty big deal, even at the early stages of the project, of a program.
Cool. I think that's super helpful. And like you had mentioned, something, that you're taking to your current clients right now, but anyone that's coming to you guys too, you're able to offer that, advice. I'm going to send some of my clients your way. It's a question that we get all the time. Make sure we hit this, but it's like, okay,
yeah,
let's take a step back here. Right.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Cool. All right. So kind of shifting gears here, we want to talk about, different advertising vehicles that you guys have found to be the most successful in targeting the Hispanic market. What is working really well? What isn't working well? Is there something different that's really resonating well with this audience, that might not resonate well with other audiences? Would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. I call it, the Hispanics and people that we probably watching or be watching later, will know this, but I think Gustavo and I will give a pretty cool picture here. Hispanics are what I call mobile super consumers, meaning 90% of Hispanics are using move versus 80% of non-Hispanics are mobile users. And then you have this over indexing everywhere, right? But it's even interesting how moving things. So when you talk like video, like you got like Hispanics are watching like 26 hours a month in video versus like 19% versus the general audience, like 19 hours of video. And it's crazy, like how much of that is happening. And the same with like, and I got to give a shout out to influential here, right? Like the influencer space, like we saw latest stat, like about 60 or 70% more Hispanics will say that they see an influencer as a trusted source versus like an African American or white that is like in the 50s and 40% who don't see as a trusted source. Or Hispanics, not only are there crazy users in the mobile space and in the smartphones and watching video, but they are actually saying to influencers like, we trust influencers. And so that's what I share. Like that's been one of the most effective things, and that opens that high indexing in mobile. It opens to other things that you never, as a brand, you never think of that the Hispanics are doing or saying.
Yeah, I think to add to that, and I'm sure lots of folks here have seen the numbers. I think it was ANA. There's a bunch of folks who've put together buyer intent data that shows that culturally appropriate ads yield up to 3 times greater purchase intent in minority communities, Hispanic being a big portion of that, and a lot of that does come down to they see those culturally appropriate cues and influencers and all this interaction online, and they perceive it as trusted sources. One piece I would add that doesn't get a whole lot of play normally because it's not for everybody, but voice. Hispanics have a huge opportunity in voice, and brands have a huge opportunity for exposure with the Hispanic community in voice and voice marketing, and it allows for some really unique integrations. Obviously, there's some digital software plays you can make, but it helps the integrated ness of the campaigns that we like to build to look at the consumer in a 360 way and say, okay, where do they spend their time? And voice is one of those places where they're spending a lot of time getting information from.
That's interesting, and interesting stat alone just on video consumption specifically for this audience. Has that gone up? Like, have those stats been as because of the pandemic? You've seen mobile go up, obviously, on the influencer space. We've definitely seen an increase in time spent on mobile devices. Is it a cause of the pandemic that those numbers are, video play are so high for this audience?
There's some high and I have a finance background, so I like the numbers. I don't memorize them though. I want to say there was a 8 or 9 point lift pre-pandemic to post-pandemic in terms of internet usage, mobile internet usage, and that includes interactive like video. And yes, so we're expecting a lot of that to be driven by the pandemic. And some initial post-pandemic type surveys by some pretty big folks are showing some of that behavior to be pretty resilient, right? So for it to be one of those behaviors that persists after the pandemic, right, as opposed to one that dies down. It's probably going to die down a little bit just by nature of being able to go out and all that kind of stuff. But that has certainly been a big factor.
I think that makes sense. Other than mobile, have you guys seen the pandemic kind of impact any kind of marketing or specific messaging to the Hispanic audience?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gustavo.
Yeah. I would say it's brought value to the top of the conversation again. Hispanics were hit especially hard dating back to the financial crisis, and it took them a good part of up until 2019, based on the best data that we have seen, to fully financially recover from pre-financial crisis earnings levels. And then they get hit with this pandemic, and everybody does, but particularly Hispanic consumers who were in those hospitality industries, those super hard hit sectors. So value has become a pretty big piece of the conversation again. Not that it ever went away, but it is one of those areas where we look for with clients and say, okay, how can we take the opportunity to communicate value and deliver value authentically to your consumers? Because that's a very big piece of the conversation right now.
Yeah, we had a white paper that came out about that, talking specifically that future confidence, the consumer confidence overall, future and present, like they all merge, like they're very similar, like they were low, and you're seeing that now with other things that are happening. And it doesn't help when when you have Hispanic population living in areas where COVID is more rampant. They get more impacted economically, they get more impacted physically and socially, at all kinds of levels. And so I say to brands, like, think about that consumer confidence, even for Hispanic, is low already, even though spending is still there. consumer confidence is low, when you see the news start saying, oh, COVID cases go up or inflation or anything like that, know that that's impacting the Hispanic consumer, and they don't know, like, what's my future going to look like? So come alongside. I tell brands, like, come alongside and help reassure that you're there for them. We want to help your community. We want to continue to be there, tough times or good times, get that message. But it's really impacted that way, and trying to find convenience, for as a brand, it's like try to help consumers write convenience and consistency. So it's really interesting thing about it.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. I think it'll be really interesting also coming out, obviously I'm in LA, so I'm sure we have different restrictions than you guys have out there too, but it'll just be interesting coming out of the, this post-pandemic kind of phase, and to see how the market's going to change, how it's going to impact, specifically the Hispanic market as well. So perfect. All right. So speaking now, I want to focus on you guys and some of the brands and the projects that you guys have worked with specifically at your agency. Would love if you guys could share with us like a specific campaign or a brand that you guys have worked on or currently working on, that you guys are like most proud of the work that you did. Maybe it's a specific campaign and just why it was such an impact on you guys as well. That'd be awesome if you could share that.
Yeah, I'll go back. There, people will think it's like, they're expecting like maybe a big brand or something. To be honest with you, it goes back to our local community, local roots. We actually helped a state hospital brand and where we are, and they wanted to reach a Hispanic women who are pregnant, and they wanted to give offer prenatal, and natal like packages and really help them have a healthy pregnancy, healthy baby. And what was interesting is like we found out that the Hispanic women were coming in 19 weeks in, and they were supposed to come in at 12 weeks. And we could see that. We could see that as they were registering, they're registering patients. We could see that it was 19 weeks, and that, it's too late, for the hospital as a doctor. Like, we want to help, especially Hispanic immigrant women. So it was really cool. We started a campaign. We started doing some early on, like social influencer and influencer on the radio and community outreach, and really activating the message that the hospital, like, we're here for you, but we want to let you know through the community. It's just like, do you want to come earlier to have a healthy baby, healthy marriage, not healthy marriage, sorry, healthy baby, like healthy pregnancy is coming earlier. What was the coolest thing I saw was like, I kid you not, 2 weeks come in as we start seeing that the graph going down, meaning women were coming in at that 14, 15, 13, 14, and we actually hit that 12, 11 week mark that they really wanted it to hit in a matter of like 6 weeks. And that message itself, I felt that we hit the mission, that we did the mission of not only elevating our brand, our client's brand in the Hispanic market, but we were able to elevate, Hispanic community, and also elevate like the education side of it. I'm always proud of that. I will always be proud of that, of helping immigrant Hispanic women have a healthy pregnancy and share knowledge. So that will say is one of my coolest and most significant campaigns that we did.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo that. I think it is our local roots showing, because I similarly have been thinking about a pretty local client that we worked on early in our career. But the reason I bring it up is just to kind of show impact, right? And how that project has impacted a lot of what we do today, and a lot of, frankly, how I look at life since then. We did some primary data locally for a CDFI, right, for a local nonprofit that was focused on building and on closing wealth gaps and building wealth in minority communities. And that was the first exposure I think I had formally and firsthand to the wealth gap, the banking and underbanking and unbanking issues that there are in the Hispanic community, especially in local pockets. And the data we pulled from that is still relevant to what we do today. We actually have been doing some really great work with some fintech and financial services companies that are much greater in scale, but have benefited from our sharp views on local impacts and how a lot of what their products and services are trying to offer play themselves out in local communities. And for me personally, we did it kind of sparked a very sharp interest, which follows me to this day, about closing wealth gaps in especially in Hispanic communities, and creating wealth opportunities through business and entrepreneurship and just better financial habits. So it's something that was very impactful to me, and it's still I carry it with me to this day.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Ramon. I appreciate both of these stories, guys. Ramon, I actually saw the hospital on your guys' website when I was doing some digging and just some background on you guys. So appreciate the additional context on that. I thought it was awesome, the campaign that you guys had run. So thanks for sharing a little more about it. Anyone that's tuning in can even check out more about the campaign. So, but both awesome stories. I love that you guys were able to share those with us. So thank you. Cool. So outside of UMG, this is something I'm actually like really curious about because I feel so many brands, like I said, are really diving into this space, especially within the last 2 years. Do you guys feel, outside of UMG, or it could be one of your clients that you guys are working with, and do you feel that there is a client that's, that is marketing really well to the Hispanic audience, whether it's like, through one specific campaign or an ongoing kind of series of campaigns that they're doing? Do you feel that there's a specific brand out there that's doing it really, really well? What I guess would love to know from you guys, like what has stood out to you guys, and who you think is like really winning in this space?
Yeah, I can kick that one off. The way I look at advertising is through this kind of formula. Again, the finance side of me is coming out, but this formula of art and science and this alchemy that together create some really impactful things that live and extend beyond the life of the campaign and really survive culture. And there's brands that have several of those elements, and sometimes they all come together. The art's simple, right? Is where do you have opportunities to create beautiful art and great creative that speaks to your audience? The science has to do with data, right? We're a data-driven industry, and increasingly trying to find more opportunities for data. And there are companies that are uniquely positioned there to use that data to leverage into better consumer insights. And then that layer of alchemy to me is that uncanny ability that some brands have to always be in the cultural conversation at just the right time, right? So you think about Wendy's and their ability to connect on Twitter and then be in the cultural conversation and create some really impactful things. And there's great agencies out West, especially that do this, that I admire. But I think I'll give you two examples. Spotify last year ran a campaign around essentially this idea of thank you for music, thank you for this and that. They essentially wanted to create a campaign where you had an opportunity as a community in a very authentic way to kind of communicate, have a voice in the music conversation with your favorite artists, and kind of highlight their contributions to your joy and to your life in a very difficult year. I thought that was really interesting. And Netflix, not too long ago, when they were running their promos for Narcos, it was a really interesting campaign that they ran, where they were able to use the fact that Narcos leans into the Spanish programming format a lot, with a base of consumers that's Spanish speaking and English speaking. And their campaign, where they had some of the main characters kind of explaining, if you will, some of the not so nice words they use in the show to kind of help the audience, was, I thought, a really interesting way to help bring those two communities together, their audience together, and showcase the Narcos brand and the Netflix brand. I think it's really impressive what those brands are doing.
Yeah, mine will be quick. One of them is I actually got two too, and then one of them is Disney. I'm a big fan of Disney, but what I love about them is that they can take like things like from culture, like Coco or Encanto, which is coming out, and really develop content and put it in a way that helps you embrace this culture and like let you learn, and no matter what background you are, you just want, you're just in that story. They do storytelling so well, but they can do it from anywhere, and then they boom activate, right? And then they actually understand that Hispanic consumer, that multicultural consumer. I mean, I think it was what, 1997, I think I saw when I was like, they were looking for Hispanic marketers. I mean, they've been in this for years, and I say look to them. Another one that I'm gonna give a shout out because you guys recognize Luis Martinez with Denny's. The same one, Denny's and John Dillon and Luis, they've been doing phenomenal work in the multicultural space, Hispanic space. Not only is John and them putting a team together, right? I have a team that is multicultural, but they're willing to take risk. And they're saying, hey, this is America's diner, and this is truly America's diner. Like, this is not only for this audience, this is for everybody, and we want to welcome you in a very authentic way. And I love how they activate. We'll see you at Denny's, Nos vemos en Denny's. Like, that campaign itself was really cool, inviting you to be at Denny's. So I just want to give them a shout out, because if you're looking for who's doing it really well, Disney from like a long-term perspective, this, and then Denny's, like from just really activating digitally and activating in the community. It's been really cool to see them.
Awesome. I have to check this out. Obviously familiar with Narcos. Not as familiar with Disney.
Oh man.
But I'll have to check it out, especially if you recommend that they've been, doing such an awesome job in the space too. So cool. I know we're coming up on the end of our session. Really quickly, I just want to check in with you guys as we're, ending this another crazy year. Love to hear from you guys on like what you're looking forward to. You can hear me. Sorry, it said my internet went out for a second. Both,
Okay.
Personally and professionally, as we're wrapping up this year, going to 20.
She skipped out again.
You guys there?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're back.
Oh, did I lose internet?
I got your question.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
I think I heard the question. I'll answer real quick here is professionally, I'm excited for, there's a couple of brands we have onboarded recently, and I'm very excited for our team to really execute some national things, especially helping global companies into the US Hispanic market. I'm gonna tell you something, that is something I never saw coming. And this pandemic has really opened the door for us to help international brands understand who the Hispanic market is. And I love it. I freaking love helping them understand the segment and what's going on. And personally, to be honest with you, I haven't taken a vacation with my wife for anniversary for a while. And so I'm looking forward to that with her. She is too, because she's a nurse, and the pandemic really changed things up for us. So we are looking forward to that. Just personally, just really grow, taking that time with us, and hopefully be able to travel a little bit. So
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll be quick. There's an interesting trend and a priority for us at the agency that we're discussing a lot around D2C, that I think the brands in that space have, I think, tremendous opportunity in that space to grow in Hispanic. I remember a few years ago at Adweek, we were having conversations about D2C brands kind of outgrowing their, kind of getting to a critical mass in terms of digital spend and looking to linear and a few other places to grow. And I think Hispanic is one of those sectors that I think they're gonna find a lot of opportunity. So internally, that's a priority, and we're looking at that. And I think culturally, it's just going to be interesting to see how those brands expand into that space. Personally, I'm looking forward to traveling. I'm really hoping 2022 gives us some opportunities to travel. I've got some tentative plans for some travel abroad, and I hope health comes first. But I do hope we get an opportunity to do some travel next year.